Welcome to Sahara TV State of the Nation, and with us today is a human rights activist and convener of Concerned Nigerians, Deji, Adeyanju. It's a pleasure having you with us again, Deji.
Thank you for having me once again on the show.
In the last couple of days, the social and mainstream media have been awash with the story of a student of Federal University, Dutse, Aminu Muhammad, who earlier tweeted around June that Mrs. Buhari was feeding fat on poor people's money. And in a bizarre reaction, the 511 student was arrested by operatives suspected to be of the Department of State Services, detained and allegedly tortured in the presidential villa on the orders of Mrs. Buhari. And following condemnations to the Court of Public Opinion, Mohammed was arraigned at the FCT High Court number 14 in Abuja for cyber stalking. What's your reaction first? Taking a deep dive into this. You have been one of the most vociferous critics of this government. How disconcerting is this to you?
Yeah. This is a watershed on human rights in the country. This government is notorious for fundamental violations of citizens' rights since 2015. This is just the peak where the First Lady, who has no power whatsoever, becomes as powerful as directing institutions of government to do her bidding. And it is done in such a it was done in bad light, because there's no way that if you feel someone has defamed, slandered you, there are so many there are so many laws on this issue that, you sue the person in your personal capacity. And the issues around libel, slander, and all that are very clear. It must be the person who is involved who can sue. The Inspector General of Police, he has he has no locus in this matter. Neither can the Commissioner of Police assume personal responsibility for someone else who was defamed. So these are the issues. These are the issues that if people don't know the law, they tend to abuse the law. And even if they don't know the law, there should be people in the police who should advise the police authorities appropriately. And the Supreme Court, our courts, several of our courts have criminalized acts like this. One of the most profound case, is that of Adeyanju and the state, wherein the court had held that, you can't use institutions like the police and state institutions to harass people and prevent them from expressing their views on issues. Whether it be sedition, whether it be libel, it be slander, it be this, all this criminalization of free speech, that it must not be tolerated. It's unfortunate that we're still having this in the 21st century when the world is flying to the moon, to space, to this. We are still talking about the irreducible minimums. Nigerians just want their rights to be respected. So when a First Lady who is apparently feeding fat, there's nothing that Aminu has said that is not true, who is apparently feeding fat, she's 3 times fatter than how she was when her husband came into office. Even the husband is 3 times fatter than he was. And if you compare the Asura budgets, the Aminu was right to have said from 2015 till date, if you do a comparative analysis of the budgets for food and travels, you will agree with Comrade Aminu that indeed the First Lady is feeding fat. And, so I don't know what it is, but, these people, it seems they've taken an oath to drive Nigeria into embarrassment and to continue to violate citizens' rights. And these are the determining factors. When the Human Rights Index for Nigeria will come out for this year, you will now see that these are the issues. And Nigeria will start crying that, why is Nigeria being ranked so low and this and that. And these are the indices that are used when someone as like the First Lady, who is expected to even be the one employing people not to violate human rights, is the one now doing it. And look at the several reports that she personally supervises torture. And torture is one of the peremptory norms that has been prohibited universally. It's like slave trade. For a First Lady of a nation to be involved in the torture of citizens and to personally carry it out on citizens, and torture is a crime against humanity. There's no how you can justify it. Aisha Buhari can be taken to the ICC for this. You know, if ours is a country that works, you know, so these are my initial takes.
Justice Alilu Yusuf of the Federal Capital Territory High Court has remanded Aminu Adamu at the Suleja Correctional Center in the United States. That's the latest we've heard as far as this matter is concerned. Are there any other updates that you are aware of? And in the light of the law, I mean, he has been remanded even without bail. I mean, is this the proper way that this is supposed to have been handled by the judicial system?
You know, this is what we keep saying, that, you know, judges must always err on the side of fundamental human rights, chapter 4. You know, these issues have been, these colonial laws, you know, and I read the one count charge, it was so laughable. You know, it offends the fourth alteration of the constitutional amendment. It offends freedom of expression clause in the Constitution. You know, it offends superior court decisions on this subject matter. You know, so I don't know why a court will even belabor itself, you know, allow itself to be joined in irrelevancies. You know, the court should not concern itself with frivolities. You know, and I don't know why some of these judges, and this is what happens when, and they know the kind of judges they take cases to. They take cases like this to passive judges, you know, who are passive, who were once prosecutors, who were these, who served. But you can't take a case like this to Justice Taiwo and, you know, the judicial activist judges. They will be irritated for ab initio about it. Why remand somebody? As the person committed terrorism, as the person committed murder, as the person committed armed robbery or kidnapping, why remand somebody over a petty issue, a miscellaneous offense? You know, and that is to tell you the quality of people at the bench. You know, that we need to do more for this country. We need to do so much for this country. They bring a charge before you that offends the Constitution. You know, and my Lord Justice Haliru, he knows that the charge offends the Constitution. He knows that it offends the spirit and the letters of the Constitution. And the supremacy clause of the Constitution, any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void. You know, so this is a no-brainer, you know, but these are political tailored moves that will result to nothing. It always result to nothing eventually.
Yeah, now that she has communicated her insecurities about her body size, some have actually alleged that she's been body shamed, so to speak, to the world, and even demonstrated the extent she will go to restrain anyone from mentioning her size. What's the multiplier effect of this on her personality as a first lady?
Yeah, the first lady has not acted right. You know, she has abused her office. She has been alleged of torture, which is a grievous, you know, crime. You know, it's a crime against humanity. So we should not be talking about her body size. Her body size is irrelevant, completely irrelevant. Whether she's plus 10, plus 20, plus 30, nobody cares. What Nigerians are saying and the way she has treated Aminu, Nigerians have joined Aminu to say, yes, she's feeding fat on the patrimony of Nigerians, is that this was not the woman that got into Aso Rock. In other climes, world leaders and their spouses come into government, they become so gray, you know, they become slim, they become extremely thin because of the rigors of governance. But here in Nigeria, Aisha Buhari and her husband, they got into Aso Rock. You know, they've turned Aso Rock to a spa. They are fresher 300 times than they came in. You know, they are fatter than they came in. So Nigerians have the right to make commentaries on this because these are public officials. If they didn't want Nigerians to comment about their lifestyle, then they shouldn't have presented themselves, you know, for public service. You know, so her personal ego has nothing to do with criticism. Those who have put forth themselves to be leaders must be ready for criticism. Her husband can still resign before May 29th if they feel offended by some of the criticism that Look at what have they said about them that have not been said about British Prime Minister, President of the United States. Macron was stoned, slapped, was this. What are we talking about here, for God's sake? So that's my take on that.
For clarity's sake, is it really a crime or an offense provided in Nigerian laws, including these so-called laws that they've purported to have brought out in order to regulate social media and all the rest, to insult the president, the governor, or any other public officer, knowing fully well that as a public official, you'll be routinely subjected to all kinds of indecorous comments by the same public that invested in their importance? Is it a crime or an offense?
There's no such crime, no such offense. And that's why we say that the Constitution, the supremacy clause of the Constitution, is what I have drawn your attention to in one of my remarks, that any law, even if there was such law, that is inconsistent with, maybe, for instance, the clause on freedom of expression, it's null and void. Ab initio, there's no issue, there's no brain, and that's why so many cases have gone to court. The out of one cause case that I cited is locus classicus on this. Once citizens' right to express themselves, is being curtailed, the court has come hard against such laws. So it's and once there's a position of the law and the Constitution has also captured the area and the courts have interpreted same, there's no issue whatsoever. So in my mind, I believe that the best way, for majority of people who feel slandered, who feel defamed, is that, in fact, if you look at the ingredients of defamation, it's something that it's only you who has been defamed. You must be the one to prove. So even if you go through this Jankara route, nothing is still going to come out of it, because the ingredients are personal. You must establish, okay, so who complained now in this case? Did Aisha Buhari complain to the police that she has been defamed? Or busybodies? Busybodies complain on her behalf. Because for her to have complained, she must have written a statement to the police. She must have written a complaint. You can't write a complaint of defamation on behalf of someone. That is what this, and these busybodies don't know the law. So even the ingredients to fulfill righteousness, you need to do a lot. So, and this is why these are civil-related issues, cases. And that is why they are personal liability cases, that you are the one, the onus is on you, the petitioner, the plaintiff, to come and say, oh, I have been so injured by social remark. I've been so injured by social publication, because social publication has been reproduced, replicated. So you must fulfill every ingredient of what you are alleging at every stage before such a thing can be said to be an offense. So that is.
Now let's also, despite the public outcry, there's been a mute indifference on the part of the current presidential candidates, vying for the president on this same issue. Besides Moyele Sowore, who had actually tweeted about this, the other presidential candidates have kept a mute silence as far as this is concerned. Isn't that worrisome?
Extremely worrisome. I had said this earlier when this happened, that all the candidates, what they are simply saying is that they endorse what she has done. That is an endorsement. Silence is an endorsement. You can see that Aisha Buhari has not come out to deny any of the allegations, including the allegation of torture that's been leveled against her. It means she actually did it. Which means she did it. So, and the presidential candidates are not saying anything because they are also like that. Many of them, when they were in government, whether as governors or as this or as that or as vice president, these are the kind of things that they must have done. That is the only justification. The only person, the only presidential candidate who has come out to condemn this great human rights violation of student Aminu is Moyele Sowore. And I said it on a Twitter Spaces that I hosted on this subject matter. So, and this goes to show that these are hypocrites. They do not care about human rights. They do not care about the country, and they also do not want to offend Buhari by criticizing his wife. So these are not the kind of characters that should be running for president in a civilized and a decent society.
Finally, the actions of the DSS, which we have suspected the government agency that has been mired in tactics of arrest and torture and hand them authority as far as this government is concerned, their actions clearly shows that they are no longer on the. I mean, they've not started on the path of self-redemption, so to say. And the fact is that they are being, part of this pettiness. Isn't it illegal, needless, and would it not backfire on them?
The DSS, they are unrepentant clowns. They can never repent. They can never change. And it is, for me, it is the bravado of their, unconstitutional acts that really surprises me, because I do not know an institution like the CIA will never do this. An institution like the FBI will never do this. So, when you thrive in illegality and you have made an illegality government policy, it rubs off on the country eventually. Because if you look at it critically, holistically, you discover that the people that need the law to work are actually the government, like what the Supreme Court said in the case of Lagos State government versus Ojukwu and Ojukwu. Because when there's rule of law, government can enforce laws more effectively. But once there's breakdown of law, when people no longer have confidence in the law, people resort to self-help. Look at the way Aisha Buhari has resorted to self-help in this issue. She abducted the student, brought him to Aso Rock, beat the student, personally joined in the beating of the student, then sent the student to a dungeon. And after public outcry, she got the police, jobless as ever, to charge him to court. So this is what happens where impunity is government policy. And it's unfortunate that Nigerians must wake up to reality that something must give eventually in this country. I don't know what it's going to be, whether it's going to be some kind of a spring, a revolution of the mind, a revolution at the ballot. I don't know, but something must give in this country. This kind of business cannot continue, infinito. Citizens must wake up one day and say they've had enough of this kind of systems. And look at the way the French did it. They savaged their country through the French Revolution. And the country never remained the same. Look at all we witnessed in the Arab Spring, and several other things all around the world. Until citizens wake up to their responsibilities as citizens to hold government accountable, leaders will continue to have a field day. The DSS and the police will continue to have a field day, arresting the innocent, and having coffee drinks with terrorists and pardoning terrorists. So that is what I think on this subject matter.
Finally, still on the First Lady, critics have actually stated that Adamu's choice of words might be inelegant, but his observation about the First Lady, who has achieved nothing for society and had only luxuriated herself in their resources, is spot on. And they've also stated that besides bringing their family squabbles into the public and arranging lavish weddings for their children and badnating in Dubai for an extended period, she has absolutely no legacy, and she has not in any way helped Nigerians. What's your take on this, please?
Well, I seem to slightly disagree. Adamu's words are quite befitting for the First Lady, because when she came, we know how she was looking. And today, we can see it that although they've not done anything for this country, but she and her husband, they've been transformed in size. They've been transformed in their lifestyle. We have seen the First Lady carry $100 and something thousand US bag. There was a report by Signal. So how can one woman carry one bag, $100 and something thousand bag from? Where did she get it from? These are questions that citizens have the right to ask. So there is nothing wrong that Adamu has done. Student Adamu, nothing. In my mind, I have analyzed it. I have reviewed his comments. I've reviewed his criticism and where he's coming from, and I align with him 100%. And that's why I have said, I'm willing to volunteer myself for the First Lady to send me to prison, probably Maiduguri prison or wherever she so pleases to send me to, because people must speak up to government. People must speak up against people in government. And people in government, whether they are uncomfortable with the criticism, must live with them. When they cannot tolerate such criticism, they must not use state institutions to victimize, harass, slap, beat, torture, and violate citizens' rights because citizens have criticized them. They must resort to civil action, file cases in their personal capacities, and challenge such criticism in court.
Deji, thank you so much for your insightful perspective on this matter.
Thank you for having me.